you know, uh, WWE's lawyers came out and said a lot of things about the deposition and mediation and court case with Martha Hart. And Jerry McDevitt said that Vince McMahon was almost crying and took responsibility. I think it would have gone a long way in smoothing things over, um, letting everybody heal, and letting everybody move forward if Vince McMahon himself would have came out and publicly admitted that his company was in the wrong and that he took responsibility. But unfortunately, Vince McMahon has never owned up to many of his mistakes and has never publicly taken responsibility for things that went wrong. Hello, my name is Hollywood Joe from Hollywood's World of Sports, and usually I would be coming to you on video to talk about certain topics that are on my mind. And tonight, kind of hard to put myself on camera because I just got done shedding quite a few tears. Just finished watching the season finale of Dark Side of the Ring, about the final days of Owen Hart. And I gotta tell you, his death, the anniversary of his death is coming up 21 years ago this year. And I'll be the first to tell you it was very hard watching that episode and sitting through it and seeing the hurt, sadness, and pain on his wife and his kid's face. And I just don't want to talk about the episode. I want to talk about some of the things I've been leading up to the episode. About a week ago, Martha Hart went on Chris Jericho's podcast, Talk is Jericho, and she, you know, talked about her relationship, talked about her life, what Owen meant to her and the kids, and just talked about the lawsuit that occurred after Owen's death. And a lot of people have been ridiculing her for years and saying she's selfish and saying, she's erasing Owen's memory and she's taken Owen's legacy away from the fans, all this stuff. And I'll be the first to admit, do do would I have wanted to see Owen Hart in the Hall of Fame, the WWE Hall of Fame? Yes, I would have. Would I have wanted to get some Owen Hart merchandise? Yes, I would have. But at the end of the day, I don't hold how she feels against her, especially after listening to that podcast and listening to her tonight on Dark Side of the Ring. And there's people that have said things. Well, she's had 20 plus years to grieve. And let me tell you something. You never ever stop grieving. You never ever get over losing somebody. Yes, the pain, the initial pain may go away after time, but you never truly get over somebody. And anyone that thinks that is either selfish or doesn't have a soul. And so, you know what? Here's the thing. People are saying, "Oh, well, we can't watch his matches or we can't witness the greatness he had in the ring." People, come on. Um, Obviously you can't see it because I'm not on video, but I literally have the Owen Hart Heart of Gold, the DVD that WWE put out a few years ago. And trust me, I didn't buy this DVD to support WWE. I bought this DVD because as a whole, I love the Hart family legacy. I love, you know, what they have brought to the wrestling business. And um I love watching what the Hart family, how they feel about Owen, and how much they loved him, and all the pranks and everything else. So to say that you can't watch Owen Hart's matches is absurd. Because the other thing you can do is you can go on the WWE network, which is $9.99 a month, pretty affordable, people. And you can go to the search bar and you can type in Owen Hart, and all of his matches and memorable moments appear. How do I know this? Because I did it today. Because I was just curious. So for people to say that his legacy is erased, um, that's bogus and that's garbage. As far as the WWE Hall of Fame, to a certain extent, actually, to a big extent, actually, I agree that it's a fake entity. There's no physical WWE Hall of Fame. The WWE Hall of Fame is just an event to sell tickets and make money. I mean, think about it. Look at some of the people that are in the WWE Hall of Fame. People like William the Refrigerator Perry, and I'm not disrespecting him. Great football player, but he only appeared in one WrestleMania. And then the real kicker, and the one that really devalued the WWE Hall of Fame for me, was Drew Carey. I mean, come on. One appearance at the Royal Rumble and he didn't do anything. Um, that to me is garbage. Okay. I mean, I could go on for an hour about the list of guys that should legitimately be in the WWE Hall of Fame. Guys like Vader, Demolition, uh, the Steiner brothers. Um, let's see, Rick the Model Martel is another one that stands out. Uh, I could go on. Oh yes, Earthquake. Um, there's so many guys. And I'm still trying to think of people. Um, Dynamite Kid's not in there, and I think he should be in there with the British Bulldog. Um, it's this Hall of Fame thing is a joke. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Do I enjoy watching it? Yes, because I enjoy hearing the stories. But again, it's a way to sell tickets to an event. It's a way to make money. And there's no physical WWE Hall of Fame. Now, if one ever gets built and, there's legit like sections and there's legit wings, all this other stuff, maybe I'll rethink my argument. And so I gotta say that Martha Hart doesn't owe anyone anything. Okay, she doesn't owe the fans anything. She doesn't owe WWE anything. And I really hate to say it, but she doesn't owe Bret Hart anything. Now, I respect Bret Hart a lot for what he did in the ring, but Bret is very, very bitter about just about everything. Like every time I hear Bret talk, especially the last 4 to 5 years, I cringe because he's so bitter about everything. And Bret should only be bitter about three things in life when it comes to wrestling. Obviously, the loss of his brother. Should be very bitter and upset about that. He should be bitter about the Montreal screw job, even though some say it might have been a work. And he should be bitter about his career ending the way it did against Goldberg. Three things. Other than that, he should have nothing to complain about because he had a hell of a career, made a lot of money, is still making money off of his name and likeness, and went back to WWE. I mean, there's a guy that swore off WWE for 13 years and he went back and he made money there because Vince McMahon lures you in. And that's the thing is, let me put this in perspective for you. Why Martha, still kind of is a little angry. I know she says she's not bitter and she's forgiven the company. I get all that, but come on. You just don't ever forget about something like that. Okay. So let me kind of put it in real world terms for you. Say you were had a family member that worked construction, was on a construction job site. What if that family member died during that construction job site? What if they died on that job site and the accident could have been avoidable and they continued working after the accident happened? Like they continued working throughout the day. Would you really want anything to do with that company? Would you really want to have any sort of relationship with them? Because I know if it was a family member of mine and they died in an accident that could have been avoided, there's no way I would have anything to do with that company. And like I said, some people go back to Vince McMahon. Bret Hart has done it. Hulk Hogan has done it. The Ultimate Warrior has done it. Bruno Sammartino. I could go on and on and on about the list of people that have went back to Vince McMahon. And the thing of it is Vince exploits people. I hate to say that, but Vince exploits people. And think about it. Think about some of the, dastardly things he's done. And I'm not talking about the screw job because that was more business related than anything. But look, let me give you a prime example. Look at the Brian Pillman situation. When Brian Pillman died, when he died that night of a pay-per-view, I believe it was In Your House, Bad Blood, 1997. The gall that Vince McMahon had to interview Brian Pillman's wife on pay-per-view about what she was feeling and about what she was going through. To me, that was the biggest form of exploitation I've ever seen in my life. Garbage. Flat out garbage. And another thing, there's rumors and speculation. This has never been confirmed, but it's a conspiracy theory. There's a theory out there that when Eddie Guerrero passed away in 2005, WWE was not going to take care of Vicky unless she came to work for them. I don't know if that's the truth. It's only been rumor. It's only been speculated. I've never heard Vicky come out and say that, but I would love some clarity on that. I would love to know if that's true, because a lot of people have speculated about that over the years. And, you know, so um, when it comes to exploiting things, even right now, okay, look at the last Ride series with The Undertaker. Is that not exploitation? You know, for one of your biggest superstars in company's history. I mean, look at Vince. Vince, I don't get me wrong. I love the entertainment I get from WWE, but Vince McMahon does not have the wisdom to say enough is enough, unless it's like Mick Foley or whatever, or a Daniel Bryan or something of that nature. But The Undertaker, he should have been done a long time ago. And I sincerely have the utmost respect for Mark Calloway, the Undertaker. But you could even see that Vince has been chomping at the bit to use him whenever he can. And so that's a prime example. And to think about it, and you know, that's another thing, is Vince will take care of people that are loyal and that have made him money. Like you've seen that he cares, and I put cares in quotation marks because I don't know to the extent of his caring, but well, you saw that he literally left WrestleMania 30 to be with the Undertaker at the hospital. Okay, I'll give the man credit for that. But let me ask you this. Let me use my favorite superstar for um example. Do you think if it would have been Cesaro collapsing backstage at a WWE event, do you think Vince McMahon would have went to the hospital with him? Ask yourself that. It's you know, because a lot of this is about money and loyalty. And I hate to say that about anybody, but there's a lot of factual stuff, you know, that backs that up. And you know, speaking of exploiting things, I want to talk about Dark Side of the Ring for a minute because there's a lot of different feelings I feel when it comes to Dark Side of the Ring. I do enjoy hearing some of the stuff that goes on, but I can tell you right now, some of it bothers me to a certain degree because as a child, like for example, I loved the Road Warriors, I loved the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, all that jazz and everything, but it kind of broke my heart a little bit to hear about what Hawk was like, and it kind of ruined the image for me. Kind of ruined um kind of ruined my feelings about him because I love the Road Warriors. The Road Warriors were freaking awesome. Loved them. You know, so it's things like that that bother me. But like, there's topics that I really felt like, okay, this is good that they're addressing this. Um, the Dino Bravo episode, the Jimmy Snuka episode, the I'm trying to think, the Chris Benoit episode, absolutely. Even the original episode of season one, the Bruiser Brody episode. You know, things like that I can respect because it's not really exploiting the business. It's diving into what their personal lives like were like, you know, during the business and after the business. And I kind of appreciate that because maybe it should be a lesson that the business should be taking care of each other when they're no longer in the ring performing. So from that aspect, I appreciate it. You know, but I've talked to several wrestlers, you know, on the independent scene from Michigan, you know, where I live. and they don't like it. They hate it. They think it exposes the business. They think that people are, what would somebody say? They're selling the secrets of wrestling like a prostitute. That's how some of it was worded to me. Um, and it lets the fans in too much, and that's the thing. And that kind of ties in to the whole problem about fans being self-entitled, fans thinking they're an equal part of the business. Okay, let me put it this way: the wrestling fan is a consumer. You consume it. You buy things. You watch things. You go to an event. Um, but you're not on the road. You're not on the road all the 200 to 300 days a year. You're not. And if you're a fan listening to this, I'm sorry, but you are not equal. You are not equal to the men and women performing in the ring from the industry's standpoint. You are the consumer, they are the product. And I think over time, that line has disappeared. And fans think that they're, you know, an equal as part of the show as the wrestlers are. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong when I say this. But the fans can make or break a show with their reactions. So that I understand, that I respect. I understand that fans have their opinions and they have their views on who they think should be doing what. And um, I'm one of them. I had to learn the hard way. Um, my my goal in life was always to be a professional wrestler or be in the pro wrestling business, and having a congenital heart defect wasn't allowed to, and I made the mistake of getting involved with somebody that let me be a manager, let me be at ringside. And that was a mistake. And it took a lot of people in my home state of Michigan, a lot of the boys, not being happy with me. Because number one, I was putting myself at risk, and number two, I wasn't trained. And, I was young, dumb, and naive. But I learned the hard way. My place wasn't at ringside. My place wasn't anywhere near that ring, period. My place was being the consumer. But I took that passion and I took that love and I applied it to my writing. I applied it to doing videos. I applied it to being on podcasts, talking about pro wrestling and talking about sports. That's what I do. And the problem is the fans don't know that line anymore. They think they're owed something by a certain wrestler. They think they're owed something by a promotion. I got news for you. You're not owed anything by anyone. And the quick solution, the best way to do the talking, if you're unhappy with something, is stop watching and stop spending the money. Don't come off as a know-it-all on the internet just because you read dirt sheets or just because you've done research, and I put research in quotation marks. You're not in the know of the business. You're not backstage. You're not behind the scenes. You don't know what really goes on. And so, it all relates. And like I said, the whole Owen Hart episode tonight, the Chris Jericho podcast, it had me thinking about all these things. Like, it just started off as my thoughts on Owen, but then it became something bigger. And like I said, just so many emotions and so many thoughts went into my mind throughout tonight and honestly throughout the last week. And so, you know, going off that as a pro wrestling fan, and I'm not going to say I'm not demanding this happen. It's something I wish in my heart, no pun intended. I don't care if Martha ever makes peace with WWE. Could care less. You know, Owen Hart is in the National Pro Wrestling National Hall of Fame or whatever it's called. He was inducted in that years ago. What I would like to see is Martha, Oj, and Athena make peace with Owen's siblings and the Hart family. You know, people like Davey Boy Smith Jr., Georgia Smith, Tyson Kidd, Natalia. They're all innocent bystanders in this. You know, yes, Tyson and Natalia still work for WWE. Yes, Davey Boy Smith Jr. is still wrestling and doing a wonderful job. But I really hope someday they can take the wrestling aspect out of it and get along, and actually get to know each other, and you know, um, try to remember Owen in that way. Like, 'cause I think Owen would want them to all get to know each other and, you know, be a family as best as possible. And that's just, you know, from me listening to his interviews over the years and watching tonight, that he was all about family. And so that's my wish. That's just something that's in my heart. The other thing before I close out here, you know, people are saying, well, we want Owen Hart DVDs and all this other stuff and want merchandise. Well, you know what? You can get merchandise now. ProWrestlingTees.com just came out with 2 Owen Hart shirts. And you know what? I think it's great. I ordered one. I am proud to say that I ordered one. Um, Now, as far as everyone bickering about DVDs and all that jazz, the one thing I would love to see, if it's a possibility, is for someday to maybe Martha could work with New Japan Pro Wrestling, because New Japan has absolutely nothing to do with WWE, and maybe they can come out with the best of Owen Hart in New Japan. And all the profits, like the wrestling t-shirts, go to the Owen Hart Foundation. And for people that say that Martha's just in it for the money and, you know, she's being greedy, well, buddy, that's what I would say. Like, buddy or pal or whatever, use one of them stupid Vince McMahon quotes. I would tell them, why don't you do your research on the Owen Hart Foundation before you make statements like that? Because I've done my research on that foundation, and they have helped a lot of people, and I'm sure they're going to continue to help a lot more people. So, with that being said, those are kind of my thoughts for this evening. Sorry if this went on too long. I just was very much overcome with emotion and just a lot of different feelings and thoughts tonight. I would love to hear what you think about the episode. Actually, I'd love to hear what you say about Dark Side of the Ring in general. Now, I just want to add another thing, and I keep thinking about things as I'm doing this now. My opinion, the only episode that really exploited the business was the John Stossel, David Schultz episode. to me, that was kind of a slap in the face to everybody in the wrestling business, because this little puny little journalist antagonized a pro wrestler after he was warned not to approach him. So to me, that was the only episode I had issues with. I would say that my favorite episode of Dark Side of the Ring within the first two seasons are, um, what was it? Oh, Brawl for All. Yes, Brawl for All. I gotta tell you, that I love hearing Jim Cornette and Vince Russo go back and forth. Um, I have different thoughts on each guy. Jim Cornette says things sometimes that just make me wonder, like, what are you thinking? Other times I laugh and wholeheartedly agree with him. And, I think he loves the wrestling business and wants to see the wrestling business at its purest form. So, I, I, I could listen to Jim Cornette all day, probably. Vince Russo, on the other hand, um, I'm not even going to touch that because listening to Vince Russo just, makes my ears bleed. Really makes my ears bleed. Um, Guy thought he was a genius, and really he wasn't. He was just a pawn in the king's game, and when the king let him loose, he failed miserably. So, um, sorry. I know I keep rambling. I'm sorry. I apologize. Just all these different thoughts floating in my head tonight. But anyways, my name is Hollywood Joe from Hollywood's World of Sports. You can check me out at hollywoodsworldofsports.com. I am also on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. This podcast will probably be up on SoundCloud as well. Where else am I? I'm on Instagram, all social media. Um, so thank you for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear from you. And as always, controversy doesn't come without criticism.